In 2017, headlines in Bulgaria and beyond accused Azerbaijan of secretly delivering weapons to Syrian terrorists aboard diplomatic flights. The story, pushed by Bulgarian journalist Dilyana Gaitangieva, sparked outrage. Her report claimed that 350 Silkway Airlines flights, protected by diplomatic immunity, were carrying arms to war zones, from Syria and Afghanistan to Africa. Dilyana's so-called exclusive quickly gained traction. Shared by WikiLeaks, amplified by Julian Assange, and promoted by pro-Russian voices, it seemed to expose a vast covert network involving Western intelligence, Gulf states, and Azerbaijan. But it was all a lie, or more precisely, a Russian operation. In 2025, an investigation by The Insider, authored by Roman Dobrokotov, Christo Grozev, and Michael Weiss, traced the original leak to GRU Unit 29155, the same Russian military unit linked to poisonings, sabotage plots, and global subversion. The fake whistleblower behind the leak, a fabricated persona on Twitter at @anon_BG, created by the GRU.
What we discovered was truly shocking. It turned out that over the years, many of the disinformation operations that had previously been attributed to other parts of the GRU, or even to the FSB and the Foreign Intelligence Service, had in fact been carried out by this same unit. A significant number of their disinformation campaigns had been designed to cover their tracks, covering up assassination attempts, sabotage operations, and actual killings or explosions.
The goal: discredit NATO allies, stir anti-Western sentiment, and frame Azerbaijan as a tool of the West in Syria's war. The documents were sent to Dilyana via this fake GRU account. The Silkway story was a masterpiece of Russian disinformation.
There is a clear correlation between what they do on the ground, attempted murders, real assassinations or bombings, and what they do in the cyber and disinformation sphere. It has also become clear that many journalists around the world who work with them know exactly who they're working for. Others might not know at the beginning, but eventually they either figure it out or are told directly.
The documents, flight records, diplomatic notes, and weapons manifests were later found to be either forged or selectively edited. GRU successfully injected fake stories into Western media via intermediaries like Gaitangieva, who published the Silkway Airlines story in Bulgarian newspaper Trud. Russian state media amplified the claims, and Azerbaijan's reputation took the hit.
There is one journalist for whom we gathered enough evidence to name her explicitly in our report, Dilyana Gaitangieva. Personally, it was very difficult for me to include her name, because over the years, yes, we've had online conflicts, and I've disagreed with the conclusions she's drawn, and the platforms where she's published her so-called investigations. But I always assumed that her motivation was ideological. It turns out it was not. It turns out she has in fact worked for what is probably the most terrifying department within Russian intelligence, one composed entirely of killers, people whose mission is to eliminate opposition figures, so-called traitors, and global competitors of the Kremlin.
The operation's reach extended beyond print. In 2017, WikiLeaks shared her interview, calling her firing pathetic. Assange himself publicly defended her, repeating claims that Western powers and Saudi Arabia were secretly fueling jihadist violence. Now, analysts say WikiLeaks became an amplifier for GRU propaganda, knowingly or not. The entire narrative was built on disinformation. There was no verified evidence that Azerbaijan violated arms control treaties. In fact, the accusations served Moscow's broader strategy: divide NATO, discredit their partners in the Caucasus, and shift blame for Syria's chaos away from the Kremlin and its ally, Bashar al-Assad. After her dismissal, she began cooperating with pro-Kremlin media, participated in events sponsored by the Russian Ministry of Defense, and actively promoted other conspiracy theories, including those about biolabs in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine's intelligence service SBU flagged Gaitandzieva as a probable GRU asset. In 2023, her name was listed in the Ukrainian Mirotvorets database. Critics in Bulgaria say their government ignored Ukrainian warnings.
Her
relationship with this GRU unit dates back to before 2017. We can't pinpoint exactly when it began. All we know is that formal contact between representatives of the unit and Gaitandzieva herself took place via a private Twitter chat in June 2017. And by that point, their relationship had already been ongoing for at least a year. I believe that these ties may have since ended, as we've seen no communication over the past year between her and members of the unit.
In the years that followed, GRU's fingerprints showed up across Europe, in poisonings, sabotage, cyber attacks. But this case, the Silkway Airlines hoax, reveals something more subtle. Not just a bullet, but a narrative. Not a bomb, but a story, told with forged emails, fake leaks, and real journalists. And Azerbaijan? Just collateral damage in Russia's disinformation war, or something more deliberate? The headlines may have faded, but the scars of disinformation remain. For journalists, it's a cautionary tale. For states like Azerbaijan, a lesson in information warfare. And for the world, a reminder. Not all propaganda screams. Some whispers, in footnotes, tweets, and forged flight logs.